right, I think they're good to go.
How did you taste that straight out of boiling water?
Just years and years of being in the kitchen, I've conditioned myself to withstand extreme levels of heat on various parts of my body, so. My name is Jude Parra-Sickels. I'm the regional executive chef for Momofuku on the West Coast. So I work here in Los Angeles at Major Domo, as well as the Momofuku in Las Vegas. So Momofuku is a restaurant group that started out with Momofuku Noodle Bar, which was a small ramen shop in the East Village in New York. We still have a few locations there. It's really kind of the foundation of the whole company. And I think if you want to make ramen noodles at home, you know, in small amounts, it's very doable. You know, there are certain parts of it that are, you know, important to recognize and make versus making like an Italian noodle or spaghetti. But I think for making it at home, it's quite doable. To break it down, basically the different components of a ramen would be the noodles, obviously, some kind of like dashi-based broth, and then a tare seasoning. So dashi is kind of the basis of all Japanese cooking. It's a broth that's traditionally made with kombu, which is a seaweed, shiitake mushrooms, and bonito flakes, which is smoked and dried tuna. Tare is basically like a seasoning liquid or mixture that gets used to season ramen broth, or you might see it as a glaze or sauce on like grilled meats, like a yakitori. And then from there you can kind of go anywhere you want as far as garnishes and different proteins. So here I'm starting the process on the noodle dough. So just starting off here with some all-purpose flour, and then I'm going to add my alkaline water. If you don't use lye water, it's not ramen noodles. Lye water is a solution that you use to make ramen noodles. It's potassium bicarbonate. You add that to water and then add that to your flour. It's gonna give the ramen noodles some nice chew, some good texture. It's gonna help them hold up to the cooking, as well as not get like soggy or mushy in the broth. Add a little bit of salinity and flavor to it as well. So I have my flour here. I have my lye water solution. I'm just gonna go ahead and add this into the flour and mix it in. It's not gonna be too wet. We do need to let it rest for a little while to kind of fully hydrate the flour. So now that I've kind of incorporated the water, I'm gonna kind of pull these flour crumbs together, get a nice cohesive ball of dough here, and then allow that to rest before we roll it out. This stage is kind of where you can adjust for that. If the dough is too dry or too wet, add a little bit more flour, add a little bit of water, just a little bit at a time, and kind of adjust from there. I think I am going to do a little extra splash of water here because I'm not getting these last crumbs fully incorporated, but you just want to add like a little bit at a time, just maybe a teaspoon at a time or so. If you don't rest the dough, the flour is not going to be fully hydrated. It's going to be really hard to kind of, roll it out and cut it or run it through the noodle cutter, and it's going to just not have a great texture. The dough is really sticky right now. You got to add flour. You can't really move on from there because as it sits, it's just going to be, wetter and wetter, and that water is not going to have anywhere to go. Yeah, so this feels good, pretty smooth on the outside. It's all together, and after this sits for a while, it'll be even more uniform. So today we're making just a shoyu ramen. So it's gonna be a chicken-based broth that we're seasoning with a soy sake mirin tare. Then on top, we're gonna garnish it with marinated egg and some grilled pork belly and scallion. So now we're gonna make our ramen broth. We have roasted onions and ginger, bonito flakes, shiitake mushrooms, chicken, and bacon. I like to use whole chickens instead of just like chicken bones, just to kind of give it some more body and a little bit more flavor. The bacon adds a nice smokiness and really kind of backs up the bonito flakes, as well as kind of giving it some nice, richness from the fat of the bacon. And then the ginger and the onions kind of keep it nice and light and flavorful. So I'm just gonna go ahead and add all of these to our pot of simmering water here. There's different kind of styles of ramen. I think generally speaking, you do need some sort of fat, whether you add that in towards the end or incorporate some in during the cooking process. You need the broth to be rich. You need to kind of cling to the noodles and really provide some nice richness. Having said that, you don't want anything to be too fatty or greasy or anything like that. You want to just have it be either, you know, fully incorporated into the broth or something that's just kind of a nice little finish on top, like a little bit of oil or, you know, bacon fat, something like that at the very end. So I'm gonna cook this broth for at least 4 or 5 hours, but you can also go much longer than that. A lot of places cook their broth overnight to really extract as much flavor as possible. I think the expectation with ramen is, you know, a lot of flavor. You know, even on a lighter style broth, there's still gonna be a lot of flavor. As far as spiciness, I mean, you can certainly add some spiciness to your ramen if you want. There are a lot of like spicy miso ramen, for example, is a common one that you'll see around, but I don't think you really want to ever be in a situation where the spice level is just completely blowing out your palate. Ramen is all about having balance and really like pulling the levers of different flavors well together. For the garnish on this ramen, we're gonna do pork belly. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can cure it, marinate it, slow roast it, grill it. Today I'm just gonna be grilling this in a cast iron pan. Get some of that fat rendered out, get some nice char on it, and then we'll just place that on top of the ramen when it's done. So as far as like garnishes and proteins in your ramen, I think you do want to cook them all the way before you add them into your broth. I think pork belly is a great choice as a ramen garnish because it adds a lot of umami and richness from the fattiness, which helps kind of coat the noodles. There's a lot of fat that renders off of this, so you don't need to like add oil or anything like that. It'll just cook in its own fat. We're gonna garnish the ramen today with a egg that's been marinated in the same tare that we're gonna use to season the broth. So the tare is just soy sauce, mirin, which is like a sweet cooking wine, and sake. So I just cooked those solutions together, burned off the alcohol, and now I have one egg kind of marinating in that right here. I boiled them for about 6 minutes, and I'm gonna marinate them in this mixture for, you know, a few hours, but they could go overnight as well if you just want to make this ahead of time. Okay, so we waited about 30 minutes to let the dough kind of rest and hydrate. It was feeling kind of nice and smooth on the outside, so I think it's ready to go. I'm just gonna knead it here for a couple of minutes, 2-3 minutes, just to really make sure that it's fully hydrated and ready to go. So now that we have our dough, I'm just gonna divide it here in 2. And the next step is to put it through the pasta roller attachment right here. So what that's gonna do is basically, you know, get the dough to a nice, even, you know, thickness. I'm gonna put it through several times, kind of fold it over onto itself, try to get a nice kind of rectangular sheet. And then once we have it to the thickness we want, then we can put it through the cutter to actually create the noodles. So we're gonna do that a few times here until it kind of is a bit more, you know, uniform. And then as we get more towards that consistency, we'll kind of slowly start putting it through at a thinner and thinner width. Right now, this is like the widest setting that the machine will go. I'm gonna go through one more time here. You can't just put this through once and go from there. You gotta put it through multiple times, through multiple levels of thickness until you have it to where you want it, then go and cut the noodles. So now we're ready to go ahead and put our noodles through the cutter. I wouldn't wanna go any thinner than spaghetti for ramen. You can go a little bit thicker as well, but that would be the thinnest, I would say. All right, so now our broth has been cooking for a few hours here. It's time to strain it out. Just gonna get some of the big pieces out of here first to make it a little bit easier to pour. Okay, so now we have our broth here, and I'm gonna season it with some of the tare. I definitely think you wanna always use tare or some kind of like finishing seasoning or kind of, you know, additional umami punch to really, you know, take that base broth to the next level. These should only need to cook for 1 or 2 minutes and they'll be ready to go. So to get your noodles to not clump when you drop them in the water, you need to give them a little stir with chopsticks right when they go in so that they don't kind of cling to themselves. All the water gets, you know, fully immersed around the noodles, and then they should be good to go after that. All right, I think they're good to go.
So is the true test if noodles are done a taste test?
Yeah, you gotta do a taste test, you know? It's never gonna always be the exact amount of time down to the second, depending on, you know, how hot your water is, how much you're cooking at any one time. So always good to taste. Okay, so now that we have our broth seasoned with the tare, just gonna go ahead and add that to the bowl. This is just kind of like the final, you know, move to make sure that the noodles aren't clumped together. Have a nice little presentation on top with the noodles all kind of, you know, in a line together, not just kind of jumbled in there. I'm gonna go ahead and cut my soy egg that's been marinating. Put that right in the middle. So now I'm gonna go ahead and add my pork belly. And lastly, garnish with some thinly cut scallions. So there you have it. This is a great, simple, delicious bowl of shoyu ramen. For those of you trying to make ramen noodles and ramen at home, there is hope. Don't give up hope. It's not easy, but it can be done. Just need to take a few important things into consideration, understand what you're doing, and go from there. Nope.